We are talking about self-compassion today. And as I said at the beginning, I am always saying, oh my gosh, be kind to yourself, be kind to yourself. But I want to obviously dive a little bit deeper into that, and I'm sure we will. So tell us what self-compassion means for you and why it's important.
Yeah, I loved how you started our conversation by sharing that example of do you talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend? Because that was kind of my first wake up call of wow, I have this Mean Girl soundtrack going on in my head that is she's ferocious, and I would never speak to a friend that way. So why do I think it's okay to talk to myself? And compassion is when we recognize suffering and we take action to help. And I think that element of action is so key in compassion because it's one thing to logically understand something and, oh, I should be kind. But compassion invites us to take a step further and step into that aligned action of kindness. Um, so I think it's really important and often gets so neglected, especially when it comes to ourselves. And I think people tend to think that if I'm compassionate with myself, maybe I'll be too easy on myself and I won't achieve my goals and I won't do X, Y, and Z. Like I need self-criticism to push myself. And I'm obsessed with Dr. Kristen Neff, and her work is what my knowledge is primarily based off of around this topic. And her studies show that, that in fact isn't true. Self criticism will decrease your willpower, but self compassion will increase your willpower. It strengthens the part of the brain that controls that function. Um, and if you think about it, if you feel good about something, you want to keep doing it. If you feel bad about something, you don't want to. So I think it's this really, we can break it down as simply as that. Like if, okay, I don't always meet my goals, but if I'm kind to myself in the moments when I don't have this negative association with that goal and I want to keep working towards it. I want to continue to achieve it.
Yeah. So many good points in there. Goodness. I am a recovering hard on myself person. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess we all are sometimes, right? As you said, we wouldn't speak to our friend that way. Uh, and I am exactly what you just described. I really felt like it wasn't okay to be happy and feel good about something that wasn't happy and good because it wasn't what I meant to do, or, whatever the situation was. It felt like I was just going too easy on myself. But I have learned that I don't get anywhere with that attitude. So I'm
Mhm.
glad that that's what you said, because you also said kindness as action, which the action thing is kind of a good point too.
Mhm. And this will veer a little away from the topic of compassion, but I think it's really important. Something you named there of sometimes you feel bad if you feel okay about something or good about something, even if it's not good. But if we're looking at yoga, the word means union and oneness and wholeness is another definition. And compassion to me is a part of the whole. In every quote unquote good, there's quote unquote bad. Like we always have both in existence. So when we try to deny one side of the emotion or one side of the feeling, we're not whole. We're not full. We can't fully be with the present or the sensation or really our lived experience. So I think compassion is a way that we can really allow ourselves to feel what we quote unquote don't think we should at any given moment, but it's already there, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. Compassion helps us open the doors to hold all of it, all of the experiences that we have as a part of being human.
Yeah. Meaning it's all okay. It's
It's all
all,
human.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all a part of the whole. It's all a part of this experience.
yeah. Really good point. Really good point. I'm not sure where this idea that we need to beat ourselves up comes from. I guess maybe it's easy for us to see in hindsight how we might do something differently, or it's easy for us to compare. Maybe it comes from comparison, now that I'm saying that out
Mhm.
loud. Comparing ourselves to other people and finding ourselves lacking. Um, Interesting. Interesting. So you mentioned Dr. Neff. Is there some science behind this? Is that something that she has studied a lot or talked about a lot?
She definitely has. If we're looking at what self compassion is doing to the body and to the mind, like when we practice self compassion, we are decreasing our stress response because we're stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system. So, for those who are unaware, the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. It's your stress response, and it's not a bad thing. It helps us in tremendous ways. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest, tend and befriend, lets your body know that you're safe, you can relax. So often we kind of live in this high cortisol, high stress state, especially in the world we live in today. There's so much going on globally, on top of like getting text notifications, emails, bings, like all the things flying at you. It's causing a stress response. So I'm a huge advocate of anything that can help us tap into our parasympathetic nervous system. And that will help. High cortisol and high stress will cause hormonal balances, which can lead to a wide range of health complications. So anything that we can do to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system can help bring us back to our body's equilibrium if we're in that high stress state. Um, it helps us to feel soothed and comforted when we tap into that parasympathetic nervous system. It also increases the hormone oxytocin, which is known as the love hormone, and it stimulates feelings of happiness and our ability to connect. So when we're not having enough oxytocin, it's harder to connect with others. And I think connection is so key to our lived experience. It Self compassion activates the insula, which is the part of the brain that stimulates our immune response. So it can even increase our immune system, which is really profound. And like I said before, it increases our willpower. It can help lower anxiety and depression. And it really helps us meet our own attachment needs, which I think is so key. Um, and just improves our overall well-being.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
immune system, hormones balanced, avoiding chronic stuff that comes from being stressed all the time. I mean, that's a million
Mhm.
important things.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, okay, people are obviously going to think this is a really good thing.
Mhm.
And if anyone's been listening for a while, you have heard I had another guest a few months ago talk to us about the nervous system. And so that was great that that came up again. And maybe people are a little bit familiar. Here's what was coming up in my head. This is all well and good,
Mhm.
but how? If we're in if we're in this situation where we're just so annoyed with ourselves or whatever it is, how can we maybe ratchet that down or flip it over to self-compassion?
Mhm. So, the way I break it down, and again, this is based on Kristen Neff's work, is awareness, acceptance, and then I like to focus on compassion in action. So I'll kind of just guide you through what that looks like. Like awareness, right? We're going to start there. I think awareness is the first step to everything. You can't change anything if you don't know what's happening. So awareness is just like noticing that voice in your head and not believing it, unhooking from it, and just taking a bird's eye view and saying, like, huh, that's an interesting thought I'm having. Like, can you not attach yourself with that thought? Can you know that you are not your thoughts and instead be aware of it? And there's a lot of ways we can cultivate awareness, a lot of mindfulness practices. And I'll kind of share a bit about each of these steps and guide you through a practice as well. So, the way that I like to help people cultivate awareness in the beginning is something called a body scan. So, do you
Okay, so we're aware of kind of how our body's feeling, if there's any trouble spot or anything going on, we're maybe aware of what's going on in our heads, noticing
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts. So then what comes next?
So the next step is acceptance. There is a phrase from Shinzen Young, I guess it's an equation, that says in suffering and in life, suffering equals pain times resistance. And in life, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And you're going to suffer the degree to which you resist what pain is present. We can't eliminate the pain, that's a part of our human experience. So when you notice that voice in your head or a pain in your body, like maybe I just did a workout and maybe the voice of criticism in my head is like, oh, like my legs feel horrible, like they're so weak, I shouldn't be this weak. The acceptance point would come in and being like, all right, that's a pain in my leg. And I just moved my muscles. And all humans experience sensations when they move the muscles in their body, right? You bring it to accepting your pain and acknowledging the common humanity in it. And that's a really key component to acknowledge that you're not alone in it. Um, so the way that I kind of like to practice acceptance is just that. So if we're sticking with the body as the modality we're moving through, right? You scan your body head to toe and you notice like, okay, this sensation of pain in my legs or this tension in my legs. And just noticing like this is a moment of pain, repeating this in your head, like this is a moment of pain. All humans experience pain or like whatever emotion it is. Maybe there's an emotion coming up. This is an emotion of sorrow. All humans experience sorrow. Accepting that it's there and acknowledging that you're not alone in it.
Right. Right. It's interesting that kind of, how do I want to say this? Grouping ourselves in with all the people, humanity, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
is such a powerful thing because I find that sometimes people, we kind of double down on being hard on ourselves because we say, well, why would I speak to myself so negatively? Like, that's terrible. Why would I do that? But everybody does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, same thing. That's how our brains are wired. Everybody does it. Yeah.
It makes it easier when you're not alone in it, right? Like it's really hard to lift a bus on your own, but if there's a ton of people lifting it up together, we can do it. And we in my worldview, like we are all connected. So like all of these lived experiences, we need each other to move through it. We need that support and to not isolate ourselves from it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of the discussion on these topics has come up even more in the past few years because, as you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, not isolate ourselves. I'm thinking, wow, we've come out of a period of time that was hard because we did feel more
Very,
isolated. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we are aware, we accept, and then now what?
Now it's time for that action of compassion. So I like to have a compassionate gesture and phrase that I can give myself in that moment. So often for me, it's placing one hand on my heart and taking a few deep breaths and just saying, like, I'm safe here or I am enough. Some gesture that's gonna, so if we're going through that example of, um, feeling bad about myself because my legs feel tired after workout, maybe I put my hand on my legs and I take a breath. I'm just like, legs, what do you need right now? Ask them what they need. Maybe they want legs up the wall. So, like, do legs up the wall for a few breaths. And maybe while I'm doing that, I just tell myself, like, you're enough. You are strong. You are whole. Whatever phrase is going to ground you in that moment. And don't do something ostentatious that like feels true. Like you don't have to say like, yes, you're the strongest person in the world. Like, just meet yourself where you're at and acknowledge the strength that's already within you and really give yourself what you need. Like if you notice that you're hungry, feed yourself. If you're thirsty, do that. Meet your basic needs in that moment. Give your body, give your mind, give your soul what it needs.